Welcome to Document News. Today I'm delighted to welcome Truls Olufsen-Mehus, who is the deputy leader of the Christian Conservative Party in Norway. Welcome to Document News.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And very nice of you to so spontaneously come to the studio. And we are very keen to hear your views on a very important topic in our times, which is the sexualization of children. So how would you describe the situation in Norway? I know that you have called Norway the most sexually extreme country in the world for children.
Yes. When I travel the world and meet Christians and conservatives, I present Norway as we have gone the furthest down the progressive route in sexualizing children and the whole society. And how it looks today is that until last year, we had in Norway two categories of health. We had physical health and we had psychological health. But last year the government introduced a third health, sexual health. So in that document, state document is now influencing all the departments from top level, going down the whole society into schools, kindergartens. We are sexual being from birth to death, and the government is then going to fill the roles in creating positive sexuality through our whole life as for the inhabitation. And that means that the government produces, actually presents us as we are first and foremost sexual human beings, sexual beings, before anything else. And this document presents sexuality as it's covering everything, our feelings, our thoughts, our physiology, everything with the person is underneath sexual health. So physical health and psychological health is also beneath the sexual health category.
And when does the state get involved with the children in Norway? Is it from like the age of 3, 4, 5?
Yes. So the current advice that the government in Norway gives parents is that when a child has turned 4 years old, you are to teach the child how to masturbate and tell them that it's nice to feel on yourself. It's going to feel nice. And when the child is 6 years old, the government, the Department of Children, Youth and Family, they say that as a grown-up you should teach your child even further this thought of that masturbation, but also at 6 years old you should learn about gender identity, sexual orientation, and what's the English word for overgrep?
Rape.
So they are teaching, they're combining all these stuff in the same category. And when the child turns 7 years old, the government says now they should learn about sexual debut. So it is quite radical what the government proposes as advice, and the advice that the government gives comes straight from state-funded NGOs.
All parents know that a child, is an open book that you can fill with ideas, and the child will think that it can be a whale or a fireman. So when the state tells them that they are sexual beings from such an early age, what is the effect on the children?
So the kindergartens, how it is presented there, last year there came a research report from Norway on how these governmental documents teaches kindergartens to produce positive sexuality. People working in state-funded kindergartens are to produce positive sexuality for children and prevent negative sexuality for children. That's the project. So that how that is played out is that nudity is to be normalized, that there should be created events where children can be nude together. because that's going to be natural and to explore each other. And they also say that this children's sexuality and sexual play for children should also be something that is was encouraged to, but to do that in small rooms where nobody else can see, so that they can be private. And they also say that only if all the children involved in sexual play, if they're masturbating together or lying naked on the top of each other, and who knows what they're doing, as long as there is compliance, is that the right word? That everybody is in on the play, then it is thumbs up. And the most important thing you do as a grown-up in kindergartens, do not break it up. Do not disturb them.
And what about bullying? Let's say these children, have different power plays, and it's also especially dangerous to have, closed rooms in kindergartens. We have had so many scandals of abuse from, especially male staff, and I think Norway prohibited, these closed. They wanted to have doors with windows or mostly an open plan solution, and now suddenly the state encourages these really sex play rooms for children.
It is, and the reason for that is so that they want to normalize every sexual activity from young age, because if you do that, their goal is to eradicate shame, remove shame from society. And the reason why adults and grown-ups shouldn't stop children when they are having these nude plays and sexual plays is because if you stop them, the moment you stop them, interrupt them, you are giving your shame that you are carrying as a grown-up onto the child, right? So that's the theory. So their theory is that do not stop it, because then it will be normal sexuality. And the reason why it is, as you said, it's quite disturbing to know that they are actually making an environment for children to explore each other sexually, and they call it normalized, and they call it play.
Well, children do by nature play with their bodies out of curiosity, but I think never in human history, at least since the orgies of Rome, maybe, has at least Europe conducted this from a state level.
Yes.
And when did this really take off in Scandinavia and Norway especially?
So the first governmental plan in came to Norway was in 2016. It was the document was called Talk About It. And in that document was the first time where children's sexuality entered the public space as something the government needs to handle. So, as I said, prevent negative sexuality, produce positive sexuality. That's the government's role and advice into kindergartens. So that's the first governmental action plan. There are several. I think Spain, Ireland, Netherlands, and Norway has the most progressive plans for sexual health, which includes sexual education and sexualization of children. So Netherlands has gone quite far in how they are making TV for children with nudity, but also we have that in Norway on the state channel. The Norwegian state-funded channel, they are producing something they call the super body, where five grown-up people would take off all their clothes in front of a panel of 10 and 12 years old, right? So and to look at the bodies, and the idea is that to remove shame, we need to teach children nudity in the right way.
It cannot be a coincidence that Norway tops the list, because we have a very high level of trust in this country, and especially in our politicians and our media still, for some odd reason. And we also have the world's largest oil fund. So Norway is kind of a lab experiment on many topics at the moment. And this sexual experimentation on our children is the most shocking. I always assumed that Sweden was worse. So are there really some international bodies or treaties, white papers that, are behind all of this?
Yes, it is. So United Nations is the source why Norway implemented these sexualized plans. So in the United Nations and WHO, they have also their own documents and plans. So the current plan for to address sexuality and to get the gender right, the queer in gender and the sexualization of children. That's in the same document. It's called the Technical Guide for Comprehensive Sexuality Education from United Nations. It's created by several of the UN departments, and it's promoted all over the world. It's now trying to enter Asia. But Norway was one of the first, if not the first country to actually implement everything from it. And on page 1, it says that children need to learn about their sexuality and capabilities within sexuality to prepare them to become sexual sex partners. And on the first page, where they are teaching them about gender or sex, it says that gender is a social construction. That gender is a variety, and there are many genders, and children need to learn this at between the age of 6 and 8. Wow. So that's from the United Nations.
How many years ago is this?
So the technical guide, I think, about the same time, between 2016 and 2019. Maybe it was 2019 when the World Economic Forum added up with the United Nations Agenda 2030. And in 2019, also the World Economic Forum emphasized that now they were going to really go all in on the Pride and LGBT agenda. So, but before that, there are also many documents.
Yeah. Norway's state and church separated in 2012, and it was implemented for the next parliament. That's 2016. Maybe that's not a coincidence. From that moment on, the brakes were off. They replaced, a Christian moral tradition with this extreme, radical, sexualized, I would say, post-communist view of a human, where the state owns the children, like it did in the Soviet Union and still does in North Korea, just under slightly different banners.
So the disturbing thing with this United Nations document, the Technical Guide on Sexuality Education, is that they want to promote the ideas there to all children in the world, regardless of who their parents are or what their parents want, right? Because they have created the truth about sexuality and gender. Right, but the thing is that they are heavily influenced by the world's most radical thinkers and producers of this agenda, and that is International Planned Parenthood Foundation. Right, that's the biggest organization in the world, and they have been proposing to United Nations for 50 years their ideology and their teachings. So what the Planned Parenthood International Foundation is pushing into United Nations is what now has turned into documents that all the countries in the world should use. And what is the end game of that? Well, early sexuality means that you need people younger for what's it called, sexual protection.
The minimum age.
I'll come to that.
Okay, right, yes.
So, but also abortion is the main industry of Planned Parenthood. They are aborting 1.5 million people every year. It's the biggest abortion part in the world. Wow. And they also are selling hormones for sex change. So they're proposing ideas which makes children and youth participate in sexuality early. So they earn money on that, because then you need all this protection stuff, and you need abortion when it goes wrong. And they are teaching children that you can change your gender, and we have the hormones and the theory to help you do it. So they are the most radical, almost evil organization, I would say. They're based on evil, and they are producing evil for children.
And they have got a large, at least top layer of the health and hospital staff and bureaucracy on board, because doctors used to swear the Hippocratic Oath, which includes the word "first do no harm," and you're not allowed to cut into a healthy body. Whereas now you see it's kind of accepted in many Western countries that you can, not only treat with hormones and, prevent normal sexual development, but you can even cut off, healthy breasts in maybe like a pubertal child.
Yeah. So the whole idea behind this is that a child knows best who the child is inside, right? That's the theory. So when the child says, "I am no longer a boy, I am a girl," that's the truth from that child. And as a parent, you can't say against it. As a clinic worker, you can't say against it now, because that is conversion therapy, which is banned, forbidden, with imprisonment if you break it. So it has gotten that far that they are allowed to preach. You can change gender in Norway from in schools curriculum at 3rd grade. Then it enters curriculum, but already in kindergarten they are talking about gender identity. Right, so as a 7 or 8-year-old child in Norway, you are already produced that you can be born in the wrong body. You can change your sex. You decide who you are, and nobody can challenge you. It's like they are lifting children into godhood. You can create your own sex if you want to.
Yes.
Wow, exciting.
So if a child thinks that, a 5-year-old says, "I am a mermaid," are we supposed to believe that? Or we even now have, this very sexualized male community where men pretend to be dogs. So shall we take that at face value? Actually, yes, you are a golden retriever now.
Yes.
We should change your identity papers.
It is happening in schools in Norway also, because I know schools where there are most often it is young girls saying that they are a cat, right?
Yeah.
But they put on these fake ears and this snout, and then they are purring, they are licking themselves, they are lying about in the classroom, and they are allowed to do it because their gender identity is like a furry, right? You can identify with whatever you want to. So in several schools, there are furries living it out in the classroom, and it's quite ridiculous, and it's creating this awkward setting, because all the children knows that Lisa is not a cat, but they are not allowed to say it.
Yeah, it's really become like the Soviet Union, that you are really humiliating people and preventing them from saying what they know is true because of state ideology.
Yeah.
And this has happened, in maybe less than a decade. It was unthinkable what you are mentioning when I was growing up, when you were growing up in school. I remember my mother, when she went to college around 1968, there was an article in the school paper, which was like a funny section, which said we got married. It was like Lisa and Julie, and she laughed out, because for her and her generation that was an impossible thought. Whereas now we are expecting everybody to believe that Lisa has become a cat.
Yeah.
And even the ideologists pushing this can't really believe this. It's an experiment.
It is an experiment. So I have 3 children. My boy in between, he is now in 8th grade, and I just read his class in society class, and on it says there in the human species there is gender diversity, more than 2 genders. It says it's the first line on human race. The first line is that in the human race we have gender diversity. Yeah. It's like a lie in the first sentence. And of course I contact the principals, I contact the teachers, and I ask them, do you believe this? And if you believe this and you teach my children this stuff, then I already have told my children, if their teachers say that they believe this and they're teaching it, you can never trust that teacher. No. Because he's a liar. Yeah. And if he can make or tell a lie about children's sex, he can lie about anything. So you can't trust the teacher.
It is probably the most fundamental truth in human existence, is that there are men and women. And we all know about 6 chromosomes, XX and XY. And this ideological aristocracy leading us now pretend that they are science, but they go against every conceivable established science for hundreds of years. Yeah. And yesterday was Women's Day. So what is the purpose of women's liberation or of promoting women into jobs when even I can go online and change my sex in 5 minutes and get promoted, probably?
Yeah, so that's the problem. They are using the same method as the devil has always started with. First comes the doubt. The doubt, is it really so? Because actually there are not only XX and XY chromosomes. You have XX0, yes. You have you have 23 variants or something of chromosomes. So that means we have already there on chromosome level, we have gender diversity. No, the truth is that everyone is born either male or female, but males and females can be born or created with a genital flaw, which makes it so that at a young age it might look like a girl, but it is a boy, but that's a genital anomaly. It is not the normal, but it is still only a female or a male with this anomaly. Exactly. It's not a third gender.
No. And embryology is an extremely complex development. It's amazing that most humans turn out to be standardized. I remember listening to a radio program where a surgeon who was specializing in correcting flaws in development of the sex organs. And he said that throughout his professional career, only twice had he hesitated a little bit and said, is this more this or more that? That's how rare this doubt really is. Yeah. But now they have introduced this word that you are assigned your sex at birth, as if a doctor just happens to say, let's call this guy a boy.
Yeah. And as I said, this state document, which introduces sexual health now, when it is explaining sex, it says that due to the bodies and the heads and chromosomes, it appears as though there are only 2 sexes, right? So the whole ideology in state documents it's all a lie. It is all ideology, heavy ideology. And that ideology, as I said, it comes from United Nations. The word sexual health was introduced by WHO in 1975, where the most radical doctors and professors in the world came to Geneva to meet and to create the first meeting. How are we going to propose sexuality to the whole world the right way?
And we know during this time, during the late 60s, early 70s, it was more accepted with pedophilia, especially in this rock environment where the stars would, go out with very young girls. And it was not seen as something dangerous as people and parents became aware of later. But maybe that was the start, at least within human memory, that this experiment really, the end goal is to allow pedophilia.
Well, as I said, there are several agencies at work at the same time, but the way they are getting there is by normalizing all sexual activity, because if all sexual activity is considered sex positive, as long as you have the acceptance by the people doing it, then there is no morale anymore. Morale is out, and you have only acceptance. Is that the right word? When 2 people or 3 people or 4 people are coming together, and everyone need to agree that we want to do this, right? Then that's the only morale. There is no other morale, and that's the way to eradicate shame out of sexuality of the human species. That's the theory.
I think it was Oscar Wilde who said morals is what you use against other people. So in a way, they are very eager to make sure that we don't mention, let's say, the sex gangs and the groomings going on in Bradford and all over the UK, and definitely in Sweden, Norway as well. That's off the limits, because it's poor working class girls in child care centers without parents, often supposedly under the protection of the state, who get abused. Some of them are killed. Some of them are commit suicide. The papers, especially in Scandinavia, have hardly touched this matter.
No.
We have the introduction of making genital mutilation prohibited and enforced by prison sentences. It's never once been used in Norway. It's become effectively allowed to marry your cousin over generations, which is very harmful. Again, we try to pretend that is normal. So it is very selective where you apply or don't apply your moral values.
Yes.
It's nihilism, which seems to be...
Yeah. It is, whatever is considered appropriate in the moment. So the biggest NGO in Norway that is pushing this radical thinking in sexuality and gender is called Sex and Society organization. They get 2.5 million pounds every year from the government to just spread their ideology into the government.
Yes.
Back into so Sex and Society, they have this award called the Shameless Prize. Every year they are giving out shameless prizes because their goal is shameless society, right? And they had to protect that prize. We had the princess, and of Norway.
The Crown Princess?
Yeah, Yes.
Mette-Marit.
Mette-Marit, yes. So Mette-Marit, the Crown Princess, was the protector of the Shameless Prize until they found the documents where she wrote some naughty messages to Jeffrey Epstein, and there was the limit.
Yes.
Shame on you. You are not allowed to be our protector anymore, they said, because we cannot have this. This is shameful, right? So they don't see the hypocrisy that they want shameless society, and they're getting it. Oh, too much shame.
Or I would say it's even worse. They pretend that the facade of our civilization is still, it's making people feel there have been no radical change, because they still, dress up in a suit and they appear like moral individuals in front of cameras. But these same people who punish our crown princess will allow, let's say, Snapchat or all these online platforms as meeting points between, pedophiles or, bad men looking for young children. That is allowed to go on. This very sexualized ads that are being run, that's also allowed.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier these documents from Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood International has document where they are proposing sexual rights. So sexuality, you have sexual rights, sexual human rights, which means that if it's implemented, that's going. If you break it, you're breaking the law, right? So the sexual human rights which they are proposing, I think it was Article 5, if I remember correctly, in International Planned Parenthood Foundation, and it says that everyone should have the right to live out their sexuality in trying to search for their optimized sexuality and pleasure, and with the growing capacity of agreeing to sex for children, the growing capacity to agree to sex for children, consent to sex. So.
What do they mean by growing in children? Why is this exposure from a...
Because if they were to speak the truth, they think that to have an age limit on sex, that is wrong. Because some people are more mature earlier. And that means that we are preventing their sexuality when they are ready with a law. And that's why they want to remove these laws, because some children are just mature earlier and ready for sex, and then they believe that then they can consent to sex. So the whole ideology is based on consent now. But we haven't discussed yet in the society, can children consent? Because if we go there can't be a hard limit on age. In Norway, it's 16 years. The minimum age to have sex with adults, so what they're saying is that we cannot have a hard limit because that is a violation to the sexual rights if you are ready and mature. So that's the child's growing capacity to consent to sex. That's from the age limit and below.
So you're not allowed to drive a car until the age of 18 in Norway with your driving license, but you are allowed to engage in sexual activities in your early teens. Is that what seems to be the future?
Yeah. So today the law is not regulating if 2 12 years old are having sex. That's perfectly fine, they say, because there are no morale. The only morale is that if an adult 18 plus want to have sex with below, that's wrong, they said, and that's still, you're breaking the law if you do that. But these documents, you have the Planned Parenthood document, but you also have ILGA International, the International Lesbian Gay Association, which is basically running Pride throughout the whole world. So ILGA International, they signed a Beijing Women's Declaration in 2020 in March, and there it says that we will fight all the laws that are prohibiting adolescents to consent to sex. And adolescence, according to the United Nations, is children from 10 to 19. So ILGA International signed a document, worldwide document in Beijing, Women's Declaration. They will fight all the rights that are prohibiting children down to 10 years old to consent to sex.
And this was signed in Beijing, you said? Yeah,
it's called the Beijing Women's Declaration. It's like an annual, or every second year there's a meeting to promote women's rights all over the world. But it's a big document. But in one of the documents you find this, I don't remember the article, but in that article it says fighting to remove all the law that are preventing adolescents to consent to sex.
And we all know that China itself does not allow this type of ideology being exposed to their children. And the TikTok in China is totally different from what our children are exposed to. So is it really a way to undermine the morals, the standards, the family, Christianity, whatever institution upholds our civilization? And our open societies are being undermined by our enemies, and our journalists and our politicians, either through not being aware or through possibly having been bought, is on this.
Yeah, so the whole ideology has religious
connotations.
Yes, it does. So a society without God in it, then sex is lifted into a divine position. It's all about our pleasure. That's why we have now sexual human rights, because it's the most important thing we have. So the new sexual health state document in Norway says that you are to interpret all the laws, our physiology, our psychology, everything is to be interpreted into sexual health regime. And the whole ideology is also totalitarian in that if you are not thinking the same as they are creating laws to outlaw you. And who are their biggest enemy? Conservative Christians. Conservative Christians, they are fighting this because they see it as evil, right? So they are all religious ideologies have in common that they want to take over Christianity's role and remove it, and that is the same. So Pride, the Pride flag, is trying to go where the cross was. The cross where the love for everyone, right? So they are proposing the Pride flag is now, we don't need the cross anymore. We have the Pride flag, because whatever you feel like, you can put into the flag.
And of course, originally the rainbow is a symbol from the Bible and the Old Testament. After the floods, the rainbow symbolized that God's rage was over. And as we all know, the rainbow consists of 7 colors. But today's Pride flag has removed one of those colors, indigo, which is the symbol of God's love for humanity, which I don't think is a coincidence. And for the benefit of our viewers, we should send a little clip with our Prime Minister from the time just before he became Prime Minister, where he dances down our main street in Oslo with the then Mayor of Oslo. And he seems to be a little bit uncomfortable, because by nature, he really belongs to the Conservative Party, but at the time, the job prospects was far better for the Labour Party. So enjoy this little moment.
Du er glad I dag?
Ja,
Feirer du?
det er en kjempefeiring, det er en fest. Denne byen kan feste og se på alle smilene.
Du har noen gode dansetrinn gjennom paraden her?
Det er finish it, vet du. Jeg skal danse med Raymond.
Hvem er det du danser for i dag?
Det er for hele byen.
Hele byen?
Alle som er ute og viser glede og markerer at mangfold er bra.
Hvem er best av dere to?
Raymond er best.
Stemmer det? Er du bedre til å danse enn Støre her?
Vi er ganske jevne. Jeg har litt mer salsa her.
Litt mer hofte på deg?
Litt mer rumpevrikking.
Well, so very soon Pride Day, week, month, Pride year will be upon us again. So how has this affected our society?
Yeah, so in Norway, we are celebrating Pride the whole year.
Yeah.
They say that there is a Pride month in June. Well, it is not a Pride month, it's June. But in Norway, it's in all the different counties and municipalities have different weeks and months and weekends. So in Norway, we are celebrating Pride the whole year, and that is their goal. So the Pride movement is owned by NGOs. So in Norway, it's called the NGO is called the FRI organization for gender and sexual diversity. That's its name, and they own Pride, Oslo Pride, which is a company. They own Bergen Pride, which is a company. So the Pride organization, Pride or NGOs, owns Pride events throughout the whole country, and it does that in I'm certain most countries it is like that. And with that, they have the definition power of sex and gender and identity, sexual orientation, whatever it is, their organization has the definition power. So when the government want to create laws, they are creating it in compliance with the pride organizations. And they have a lot of power, and of course they are state funded. So this circle that the government gives NGOs money so that they can use the money to affect both government and the inhabitants of the country into this pride thinking. Yes. And with it, as I said, the pride flag is the brand of all this whole ideology of that we are sexual beings first and foremost. We are born as clean slates, and we can decide whoever we want to be, whatever gender, and our sexual orientation is also only we can know that and choose that. So that's the whole. So that's why I say the pride flag is the brand which opens up all the other, I would say, evil.
The 8th of March, like demonstrations yesterday, feels like a foreign invading army, because it's not a single national flag. It's the flag of Palestine, of even the Iranian Republic, of hammer and sickle, and especially this symbolism is very strong, that they basically need to blot out any national identity or history from the past. So I wanted to touch on one of our journalists. He is a former, very well-known writer in our Financial Times paper, and he has discovered that Norway has replaced US aid as the sponsor of woke causes around the world. So after Trump came to power, he more or less abolished US aid, but the Norwegian Development Fund and other, channels from the Norwegian Oil Fund or Norwegian taxpayers is now being distributed across the world for these pride, woke, and even terrorist sympathizing methods.
Yeah. Well, but that's nothing new. As I said, the organization FRI, the NGO, they have received 20 million pounds over a 10-year period to influence other part of the world with pride ideology. Right? So we have been exporting pride ideology, gender ideology, sexualization of children in the framework of United Nations. So this is not new. You have something called the church aid. What's it called? Kirkens Nødhjelp. The church, church aid NGO that helps children in Africa. So the church aid is already using United Nations comprehensive sexuality education to enter societies, and they have non-Christians that work to teach them about this new sexuality in Africa. So I know that there's an organization called what's the name again? I forgot. But there's an organization that has written a book where they are highlighting what African leaders and presidents have tried to prevent a United Nations sexuality program to enter. But what United Nations have done then is said, if you stop sexual education from us, we stop aid to you. Huh. So presidents in Africa are forced to accept United Nations sexual radical curriculum. The organization's name, Family Watch International. And Family Watch International have been following the money. They have been following the education system of United Nations, following Planned Parenthood. So when in that book, when you can read about that the United Nations is using money to push their agenda, I think it's horrible.
Of course, this will polarize our societies, beyond possible threshold of function, because they at the same time have lifted the borders and have imported large voting blocks for their own parties from Africa, from the Middle East, who are not keen on this pride message. And yesterday, on 8th of March, and they are still demonstrating together, trans flags and Palestinian flags side by side. But we all know this is going to blow up, and Muslim parents will definitely not approve of this teaching.
No, I know that. I have been teaching about what is happening in Norway since 2019. So in 2023. Yeah, 23. I was called up by the biggest Muslim organization of Norway, and they asked if I could hold a presentation for them, because the mothers of their mosques were disturbed that their children were starting to trans and like going all out on all this stuff. So I held a presentation for a lot of the leaders, and they were just they couldn't believe how far it had gone, and they asked if they wanted more of this. They wanted their whole organization to learn about it, but they said that it's quite dangerous for Muslims to be activists against this because of terror versus queers, etc., which happened. So they said that they don't like it, but they are keeping their mouths shut. And but you might say that, well, you have this poly. I'm not sure of the English word, but these poly people that want to have a relationship with a lot of people at the same time, right? The poly gang. And you might say that, in Islam you have the same, right? You have a man can have several wives. Okay, so that fits with the narrative. And this transing thing, also I think is Iran and Pakistan. There are if somebody has a gay son, they often make that person do hormones to change sex and operations to change sex. So he's not gay anymore. He's a woman, right?
And in these societies where women are not available, they have found an escape route whereby Arab men who are born gay are allowed to sit with the women and cook and wear female clothes. Like the Bedou culture in Saudi Arabia is like that. And I know, like in the countryside of Morocco, the men will early on spot a feminine boy, and he will be passed around. And again, this pride people are not concerned about individual, fates. It is more about, pretending that there is a tolerance and not abuse.
Yeah. So the whole ideology also added this thing called intersectionality. So intersectionality is basically a minority can have multiple minority identities. And when you add extra minorities, you add extra levels of stress and you add extra danger from the society, right? So intersectionality is the combination of minority identities. So what is happening is that why do we say that white males turning 50, that's the most evil sort you can find in the world right now, right? Yeah. And the reason why the men pushing 50, white men pushing 50 are on the lowest level in this whole pyramid now. We are the lowest on the pyramid, and above there you have white women. And then you have black men and black women, and then you have on the top of this pyramid of this intersectionality, you have trans lesbian woman, black in a wheelchair, and you just add stuff on it, and you will be the bravest person just for being alive, and the whole society must listen to your views because you're so special that you need to explain how the world looks so that everybody can be careful around you.
It's also cruel because if you look at the Pride marches and also yesterday this Women's March where one of the slogans was trans women are women. Well, if that was true, they didn't need to put it on a placard, you know, it would be universally accepted. But just by glancing at this section of the protest march, you can see it is quite heavily psychiatric cases. Yeah. And to tell someone with severe psychological problems that your fantasies are real, that you can be the opposite sex or Santa Claus, is not going to make you more healthy and then pump you full of hormones or maybe cut your body. This is like a cruelty on the part of what the health care system did during Nazi Germany, just with different victims.
Yeah, that's true. So what we see is that up to 70% of all children that think they are born in the wrong body, they have mental illnesses or traumas, have been bullied, divorced parents that has gone through a tough period. It's ADHD. It's like so many other things that are affecting them. But the trans movement, the Pride movement, they say that, oh yeah, but if we trans them, all these illnesses will go away. And that's a lie. But what we see is that if we try to handle the illnesses with the verbal therapeutic teaching and aid and care, then the trans idea goes away. And of course, the Pride movement can't have that. So that's why they invented conversion therapy banning, so that you are not allowed to do this, to say that, look, it's impossible to be born in the wrong body. It's impossible to change sex and gender. It's actually impossible. So in order to, you don't have to change your body. You just have to change your thinking. And that's illegal. And in Norway, you are you can be imprisoned for 6 years if you do that.
There is a wide distribution of people who believe that they are born into the wrong body. If you go back to, let's say, the war generation, very, very few men believe they are women, maybe 1 in 2 million. Or in China, almost no men go around thinking they are women. But if you go to the liberal cities in America, I think it is it 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 maybe? So it is all, down to pushing an ideology.
Yeah. So I know I got contacted by teachers all over the country. And an example, a teacher said he was teaching a class of art and design 2 or 3 years ago. And he told me, so I have a class of 20 people, 7 of them call themselves trans. All of them girls. That's statistically impossible. That's statistically impossible. But the Pride movement will say, they are born this way, right? It is statistically impossible that happens in class. That 7 girls in a class of 20 are transing. So there must be, as Lisa Littman discovered in her studies, that you have, it's social contagious, right? Social contagious ID. But if you say that, you say that to children struggling with identity, you can be put to jail because that's conversion therapy. You're saying it can't happen. So instead, we are now lifting all these girls onto the altar of the Pride altar and cutting off their breasts and injecting hormones so that they get beard, they get increased cancer risk, increased heart disease risk, they are an increased suicide risk by many, like several 100%.
As men in our 40s or pushing 50, we can remember Norway, which was still sane, before all of this happened. And I can remember going with my mother to the Grand Hotel to celebrate a special occasion. And I was sitting with my back towards a very long table. And at some point, she turned to me, I was maybe 10 or 12, and said, "Aren't they cute?" And I turned around, and then I realized it looked like a scene from, Roald Dahl's The Witches. It was women who were dressed like very, very over the top, as if they came out of a 1910, 1920s novel. And of course, they were all transvestites. But, we pretend that this wasn't accepted in Norway. It was, it was just a subculture, and they were allowed totally freedom to act however they pleased. There were some violence towards gay men and even murders, but the threats that gays will face now and in the future with what the breakdown of Christian values and the importation of Islamic roots will cause is never debated.
No.
So where will this end?
Yeah, I have a friend, we discussed this years ago, that there are two trains coming that are going to collide, and that is the Pride train and the Islam train. And when they are crashing, the Islam train will just roll over the Pride train in the future. So what we see is that in Norway and a lot of Western countries is that we are crushed between these two trains. Like, as you said, the normal person, might be a wrong word to use, but the normal person is in between these two trains. And these two trains are holding up rights on both ends. I'm a minority. Yeah, we're a minority. You in the middle, you make us a minority. But on a global level, us in the middle here, we're the minority, right? So the whole racism ideology, everything is racism. That is muting Norwegian people. We don't dare to speak against Islam because then you're racist. You don't dare to say anything against Pride because then you hate homosexuals and you hate trans people and you hate lesbians, right? So you can't win. You can't make an opposition against these two trains because then you are wrong.
The KGB identified the institutions and strengths of their opponents during the Cold War. And one of them was, our good schools and universities. It was, our strong families. It was Christianity and other institutions. And they found subcultures, people, left-wing newspapers very often that they could support either morally or by economics to, get a loudspeaker effect, the drip effects over time. And I think many people nowadays are not aware that this ideological undermining of our society started in Moscow during the Cold War. This train has just, as a revolutionary movement, just keeps on rolling and steamrolling everything before it, and they can't say no. And one of the aspects is that they want to undermine the family and the white male especially. So I think people who want to be politically correct and mainstream feel that they have to excuse themselves for being, a white Norwegian. We never said a white Norwegian because everyone was white when I was a boy. And if you now want to claim victim status, it's not even good enough to be gay, or you have to kind of have another additional card if you're going to survive.
Yeah, the intersectionality thinking again.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You have the intersecting minorities. So the more minorities you have, the higher status you have.
Yeah.
And then you can impose your morale on everyone else. Because you're a victim.
Yeah. And it's really nauseating because this is especially common amongst the most, privileged in society. The Ivy League have the highest number of trans children and trans students. So it's basically a way of saying that either accept me as a student or, I talk all the day about the Palestinians or other groups that deserve my pity. But where am I? I need to have a victim card too. So I have a trans child. He's like age 2 and he thinks he's in the wrong body.
Yeah, but that's why you see in several countries in the USA and also in Norway, in colleges, you see that people identifying as queer, right? Either you just feel queer or you identify as gay or lesbian or bi or poly or non-sexual or trans or whatever, right? So up to, I think in colleges, between 20 and 25% identify as queer now.
Yes.
But the population, the numbers in the population over decades and decades back in time, we see that has been like 1 to up to 3%, maybe 1 to 3% has been stable, and it's not like there's something magically happened overnight, but ideology was pushed into schools, into curriculums, into the culture, all the videos, all the series we're watching, all the social medias, it's everywhere being pushed. And you must remember that the reason why we got the diversity, equity, and inclusion higher, right? The day hires, that was because you needed that. If you were on the stock market, the people in power and money, they decided that, okay, so our fund organization, we will not buy stocks if the organizations do not have the day hire, because that's the inclusion. Then we are pushing this. So suddenly all the big companies needed to push pride and inclusion and equity and all that stuff. So that's why it's overnight in 2019. That was when World Economic Forum started pushing it. Push the button, everybody needs to do it, or else we want to buy your stocks and then you go down. So that is what happened then, and that's why. And when the big money started to pushing it, and the governments were also pushing it, and it happens everywhere. So we were surrounded with the pride ideology, gender ideology, queer ideology, Marxist ideology all around us.
In Norway, we have a great tradition of watching crime series during Easter for some odd reason. But lately, especially the BBC have been pushing pride and diversity up to a point where, when Poirot has collected all the possible murderers in the room, they will all be trans or gay or lesbian or I don't know, two-spirited penguin, I don't know what, and one white male. So it's very easy now to guess who the murderer might be. It can't possibly be one of the others. So and also that. So what we have now is a movement with liberal women that think it is more safe to meet a bear in the woods than a man, right? Yes.
So the whole ideology now and the whole movement is now proposing the man is the dangerous thing, the most dangerous thing in society.
And that's why it feels like this is planned by our civilizational enemies, or the people who control our social media. Because when the internet arrived, it was mostly a male thing, and programmers and like very almost autistic men who enjoyed programming. It only really caught up with women, like in 2010 maybe, or a little bit around there, where social media exploited this female vulnerability of what do people around me think about how I look, or how do I belong in the group. So Instagram and all these TikTok have been tapping into this effect, and that's why women especially have become so radicalized, because men still live our lives on different platforms.
Yeah.
And so this war of the sexes is really to, push women and men apart.
Yeah, true. So especially in women now are waiting too long before they try to get pregnant and marry. So in between that, from they are fertile and until they get married, they have this they can have 20 years, a 20-year period where they have the mama feeling to victims. I see a victim in society, I want to mother it, protect it as my child. So this whole feminist movement into queer, into pride, into all levels, like racism, everything, Palestine movement, everything, they would have died if the liberal women actually married younger and got children younger, because then they would have their family to take care of and not take care of all the older world's victims, right?
Yes, yes.
So that is part of it, that this mother feeling that you want to protect people that need protection, right?
And from a Christian point, Jesus says you should love thy neighbor, and the neighbor is someone close to you who you are responsible for. Whereas today's society has turned this on its head. You should ignore, the weak around you. They are not fashionable enough. Drug addicts or girls from, what's it called? Bad, difficult circumstances. But you should look after, let's say, people from around on the other side of the planet. So they want to be better than Jesus in a way. They think this ideology tells them that you are basically a Messiah who has to put the world suffering on your shoulders, and this is something impossible for a human.
Yeah. So there are 70 million refugees in the world, right now. So that means that there is no room in the world to put these refugees into countries. It's impossible, and you can't do it, and it's wrong to do it. But the same, as I explained, the same feeling that you can care for other people that are in need, and it is connected to the media, as you mentioned. The media is as proposing this image of that catastrophe, but not the 99 others. So we're all, oh no, here we have something really bad. But there's 99 even worse catastrophes that we don't hear anything about.
And of course, it's not the people who suffer the most in the world who have the money and the connections and the health to come to Europe.
No.
It's we receive the people who are well off in poor countries. That's the terrible truth. The people who don't need to be here are here. And we ignore the rest. We should maybe come towards a close, but I want to bring us into slightly more optimistic waters, because what goes on now in Iran is possibly a hopeful scenario if we avoid like a Syria or Afghanistan meltdown. The Iranian people, and especially the women, have been very brave for years now, taking off the chador, burning it in the street, and getting raped and killed in prisons. And the feminists totally ignore this. They prefer to wear this Palestine scarf, but usually around their necks. You couldn't wear that in Gaza. So now they should really move with the times and wear the chador if they really like these terrorist regimes. But do you think if Iran gets its freedom, that we might be taught a lesson about what people who are fed up with our ideology or Islam have to teach us?
Well, we can hope so, but I must admit it is difficult to, if you're going to ask, so what is the role model Muslim society? Where in the world do we have if we can just take over everything, it will look like this. They have nothing to show for, right? So I'm reluctant to say that I hope there will be a good change. I have spoken to pastors that say that there is now a movement in young Muslims that say that this most radical thinking in Islam and the Quran is wrong and it needs to change. So, but where that will change, they said that it needs to change in Cairo first. I think that's the head of of Islam, and if that doesn't change, you will have the same problem everywhere else, right? Because Islam wants what Islam wants. But of course, if you can then cut the head of the funder of all these terror organizations, that definitely the world will look different after. I agree to that. But moreover, the only solution, how I see it as a Christian, is that we need to spread the gospel. We need to do what Jesus told us to do, and that is to bring the gospel to all over the world. to all people of the world. And that's the only way to actually get people to awaken from ideology, to awaken from these false thoughts that you can change your gender and that nothing has, that I can do what I want without any responsibility. So that is at least how I see it as a Christian, and that is what I do, both as I am a politician, but in my work I also work to expose what is happening in the society, and also in my spare time I go to my local church and I do ministry, and we are on the street and we are talking to youth and young men and women, and they are coming to Christ. So there is a movement, and among the youth and young adults that I really have high hopes for, they look really decided that they want the truth. They want the truth, and they will keep looking, and they will, if you're a grown up and you do not give them the truth, they will just push you aside. They're not interested in you. So I think they will be radical on truth, and that can change the world quite quickly.
Truls, thank you so much for speaking to Document.news today.
Thank you.